everyone. This is Jasmina's kitchen right now, and I'm going to be teaching you how to make the UBX Cloud chip cookies. They are what we send our clients in the mail and enjoyed by also the employees and their families. So today I will be teaching you how to make them and also talk a little bit about the ingredients and maybe what you guys can get there as substitutes for the ingredients that we have here. And for the ingredients list, we have here 7 cups of all-purpose flour, which is 876 grams. It is a white flour, bleached usually, and it is pretty low in protein as opposed to a bread flour. And then I have here 5 sticks. Our butter comes in sticks here in the US of unsalted butter, and it works out to be 565 grams. I melt it in the microwave, or you can do it on a stovetop. And then we have our brown sugar, which is a white sugar that is mixed with molasses. And if you cannot get brown sugar, we can substitute molasses and white sugar, or you can just do straight the white plain all-purpose granular sugar. So for the brown sugar, we have 2.5 cups or 500 grams. For the white sugar, we have 1/2 cup or 100 grams. Here we have corn starch, which is also known as corn flour. It's basically a thickening agent, and it also works as a stabilizer in these cookies to make them a little more hearty and dense, especially for our purposes because we are sending them overseas many times. We need them to be sturdier and to travel well, especially when we're sending them to India. Next, we have our baking soda or sodium bicarbonate, and there's 2 teaspoons of this bicarbonate, and then I forgot to say there's 2 tablespoons of cornstarch or corn flour. Here we have vanilla. Now our vanilla here is vanilla bean that they suspend in alcohol, and I know that Muslims don't consume alcohol. So for your cookies, I use powdered vanilla, which I know that Mohammed has mentioned in the past that you have access to as a powdered vanilla. And in that case, if you have to use a powder because this is a liquid, you would maybe need a tablespoon more or 2 of the melted butter if your dough becomes too dry. Then we have 2 teaspoons of salt. This is just table salt. We have 4 eggs, and they need to be room temperature. And these are chocolate chips. These are semi-sweet chocolate, milk chocolate. You can also use a bar and chop it, or you can sometimes buy it, and I've seen it in chunks, where they're little squares. So whatever you can get, but this is 24 ounces of chocolate chips, and it's 680. And because we have so much sugar in our recipe already, we don't want to get a sweet chocolate. So something that is perhaps a dark chocolate, a semi-sweet chocolate is something that you would want, as opposed to a sweet chocolate. But if a sweet chocolate is all you can find in a chip form or whatever, then you would need to lower your brown sugar and sugar intake. So right now I'm going to walk you through mixing the ingredients together. We have our wet ingredients, what we call them. So our butter, our melted butter. We're going to incorporate our brown sugar. Also, when you measure that, you're going to want to pack it in. That's the type of sugar it is. You want it level and packed in to get the correct measurement. And then our white sugar, our vanilla, which in my case is liquid, but if you are using powder, you can also mix it in with your dry ingredients, which would be your flour, salt, baking soda, the sodium bicarbonate, and the cornstarch. So those are our wet ingredients, and we have our eggs, which we have to add in one at a time. You want to mix this portion well, because you don't want to mix it too much when it's incorporated into your flour, because you don't want to activate the gluten and make it too stretchy, which would give you a more doughy cookie. So you want to mix it well, the wet ingredients, and then incorporate it into your dry ingredients. And you just want to be able to mix it enough for it to combine completely, but not overmixed. Now we're going to be mixing our wet ingredients over here, just so you can see the consistency and how they come together. You do need to have an electric mixer. Something small, handheld like this, or a stand mixer would be great, just so that you can get that consistency, everything well combined and emulsified together. So this is the consistency you want it. You want to have lots of bubbles from the eggs. It'll give it an airiness, and it'll make it softer and chewier, especially in the center of the cookie. And you'll notice that it lightened quite a bit because of the air that's incorporated in whipping the eggs. So you want to look for that lightening in color and all those air bubbles from the eggs being whipped in the mixer, which is why you need an electric mixer or a stand mixer, because you can't really get that consistency doing a hand whip. So this is our wet ingredients all mixed together, and now we're going to incorporate the wet ingredients into our dry ingredients. Okay, we're back over here. We're going to do our dry ingredients now. So this is our measured out all-purpose flour. We're going to add our table salt, our sodium bicarbonate, our vanilla in this case, if you were using the powder, and the cornstarch, our thickening agent. And you can just give it a stir. I'm just using a spatula, but a whisk would probably be better in this case. Just to have it incorporate through the dry ingredients so that you don't have any clumps of salt, especially, or of your leavening agent or your thickening agent to be clumped up in one cookie. Now I'm going to take this over to our wet ingredients and we'll combine it, and then we'll be ready to scoop the cookies. Now we're going to incorporate our wet ingredients into our dry, and you want to pour that in And a lot of times with your brown sugar, you're gonna have these chunks, and they usually linger at the bottom of your bowl. So I would take a silicone spatula and kind of press those out. It's not a big concern in your final product, but especially if you have larger pieces, I would wanna flatten them out here, kind of crush them up. And you can still see them, but they're quite small at this point and broken up. Get all the wet ingredients in there, scrape it really well, because this will be a dry dough. Now our wet ingredients are in the container with our dry, and I'm going to be mixing them together. And the important part here is just to remember not to over mix, because now you have your flour incorporated in with your wet ingredients. Start off on low speed, you don't want flour flying everywhere. This is my first setting. Point that it is not completely combined, and that's what you want actually. You still want to be able to see a little bit of flour, but still have a majority of it incorporated. And you can see that it is dry, but it's not, it still comes together nicely as a dough, and even the parts with the flour in it, they come together nicely. The reason I leave some of that flour in there is because there's still some more mixing to do by hand, and we're going to be mixing our chocolate chips in, or our chocolate chunks, whatever it is that you have access to. So with my silicone spatula, I'm just going to pour the chips in, get the chunks off my mixer. And we incorporate by hand now. And this way you can scoop up all the bits of flour along the side and get any pieces mixed in. I kind of take my spoon around and bring it into the middle. Catch any pieces that may fly out. Okay, and there we have it, and I'll show you what I do for scooping. Right now you're going to be scooping your mixture onto your baking tray. Now I have silicone mats. These are definitely not necessary. You could easily use like a wax paper or parchment paper to line your baking sheet, or even just to spray it with the spray oil, spray butter type thing, or even just to butter it by hand, I guess, would be fine, just so that it wouldn't stick to the surface of your pan. These have measurements already on them. This is perfect for 12 cookies per sheet. However, we are starting to make them smaller actually, because we're sending them out in our UBX cups. So I disregard these portions anyway. And all I use is a simple spoon. I don't even use a scooper. And I eyeball it. Basically, I want to get a rounded scoop. And you can kind of eyeball these and, you know, use your judgment as to how big you want to make them. but you definitely want to be able to leave enough room between the cookies because they will spread a good amount while cooking. And another thing that I like to do is some of these cookies are not going to have chocolate chips on the top, just the way the dough is incorporated. So at the end, when all of my cookies are ready to bake, I take a handful of the chocolate chips and I press them on top to give them a finished look and, you know, give you that appearance that it's a chocolate chip cookie and that it's more uniform instead of, you know, you might have this cookie that looks like it's just a sugar cookie. So that's the last step before baking, is to incorporate some chocolate chips on top. So I have 2 cookie sheets here prepared with my chocolate chip cookies. I have placed the chips on top and they're ready to go into a preheated oven, 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 175 Celsius. And what I do is, because they don't fit on the same rack, is I stagger them. I put one on the top and then one on the bottom, and I make sure that I have as much cookies exposed and not overlapping. And I bake them for 6 minutes. Then I open the oven back up. I flip the pans so that they get more even heating, and I do another 6 minutes. Every oven is different, and depending on the size of your cookies, you're gonna wanna keep an eye on it. But I don't want you to be opening the oven too often, because then your temperature drops and you might not get even baking throughout your entire cookie. It matters less when the cookies are smaller, but whatever the case may be, you still don't want to be opening your oven. Now we're at the 6 minute mark. I'm gonna take the bottom tray and the top tray, and I'm gonna flip them to ensure further consistent cooking. And set the timer again for 6 minutes. All right, now my cookies are just about ready to come out of the oven, and I place them on a cooling rack just so that they don't continue to cook on the hot surface of the pan. Voila, we have our cloud chip cookies.